of volunteers? We've got a recording. Great.
Yeah, I think when Priscilla joins in, that's when it automatically starts the recording.
Well, Priscilla must be in the house. Awesome. Cliff is here in the meeting. Let's see. Looks like Priscilla may be too. Lori?
Just started the recording.
Thank you, Cliff. Cliff is our president. Lori is our VP of Finance, and Caitlin and Priscilla are board members at large. If you're interested in being on the board, we're going to have elections pretty soon, and we're a very friendly bunch. But what our goal is to make the IIBA in Tampa Bay the very best it can be. So if you're interested, let us know. Your hosts today are myself, Thea, and Tiffany. If you want to reach me, I am the Vice President of Career and Professional Development for the Tampa Bay IIBA. Tiffany is a local. Tiffany, explain who you are again.
I am a local current paid member for IIBA Tampa Bay, and I'm also a lead data analyst over at WellCare, now called Centene Corporation. And I was the one that was like, hey, can we start this up? Because I want to get my CBAP.
Yep. Tiffany was like, hey, somebody needs to do it. And I said, okay, help me and we'll get it done. Also on the line, we've got Bob, and let's see, Rohit is not here, I don't believe, unless I'm missing him. But Bob is here to give us his expertise. You can see he's got all the letters after his name. He has earned the certification plus many others. He's got an awesome website that has so much good information, and he provides us our lunch and learns on a regular basis. So if we have any questions, we have him here. One of the stipulations for us being a approved study group is that we have a CBAP certified person to answer questions. So let's see, have I missed anybody? I don't have Michael. Michael, tell me your last name.
Oh, sorry, Mosier. Hi.
Mosier?
Yeah, M-O-S-E-R, yeah. Close enough, no I, but it works.
I'm getting there. I want to give you credit for being here. Let's see. I think I have everybody else. Have I missed anybody? Okay, gonna keep going. Our study group is going to be every Tuesday night. These that are in green are our general meetings. We will not have study group on those nights, but just understand every Tuesday night we're doing IIBA and we're going to help each other learn. I did skip the week of Thanksgiving and the very last week of the year. If you have to skip a week, we're going to be recording these. You can catch up with us, but it's easier if you don't skip a week. So I'll just say it that way. The thing that we're going to be doing today is go through the BABOK. And to do that, I got a membership with Watermark. Watermark is a organization. Let me move these around. Watermark is an organization that has been around for a long time, and they provide test exams, practice exams. So you can basically take this to see how you're going to do on the actual exam. One of the things I like about Watermark is every time there's a new version, they update their questions so that they're pretty accurate. These are not exactly the questions that you're going to see on the exam. They're going to be like, of the questions you're going to see on the exam, 1 in 10 of these will probably be on the exam, but they're very similar. They give you an idea of the feeling and the style of the questions. So I thought tonight we would go through the introduction and chapters 1 and 2 and just jump into it. Look at the test questions, look at how they have the answers. You're going to notice that maybe 3 of the answers look like they could be the right answer. Only one of them is going to be the most right answer. And then we'll jump into the BABOK for each one and figure out why that's the right answer. So let's begin a new exam. Business analysis can be performed from a diverse array of perspectives. So this sentence is actually in the BABOK. I'm going to copy it here. Which one of the following is not a perspective outlined in the BABOK? So if y'all will just, if you have a piece of paper, do 1 to 15 and tell me who thinks it's question number 1? I'm sorry, answer number 1, answer A. Who thinks it's B? C?
No.
D?
Mm-hmm.
I have 1 vote for D.
Vote D also.
Okay, let's see this. Check answer. Correct. Waterfall is not a stated perspective. We're going to look at BABOK 1.46. And I've got that here in another window. Let me put this over here, move this over here.
There, and this access, it's paid, right?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Access to watermark learn. You need to subscribe for it.
Yes, this is a paid subscription. I paid for it so that I could share it with y'all. They have different payment models. You can do it for 30 days or 60 days or something like that, and it's different prices. So it depends on how long you want to use it and how much you're going to use it, if it's worth it to you. But for today, we're using mine. So
Hey, I got a kind of a quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, it's okay.
Okay. So I bought the watermark book a while ago, and I'm wondering, does it come with the subscription? So it's been a while.
Yeah, it
Okay.
has.
Or is
it
that
does.
like an extra charge for the?
Okay. Let me ask, did you buy the watermark
It
book or
comes
did
with
you
it?
buy the
Okay.
BABOK?
But I bought both. So I
Okay.
have the BABOK and I have the watermark study guide as well.
Okay, the study guide is different than the practice tests online.
Okay, that's what I was trying to determine.
Yeah.
So
Now, they might have had a package deal or something like that. I can't tell you for sure. But if you sign in online, it will tell you what you have access to.
okay, I'll go back
You
and
should
check.
And
You
let
should
me-
be able to
let me
reach out
say-
to the person in question too. Watermark has pretty good support services.
Yeah, they do. And
Okay,
let me say,
perfect.
I'm not saying Watermark is the only one. They're my favorite. And I did contact them and they're going to send me some discount opportunities so that I can share those with y'all. But
Okay.
I haven't got it yet. It was just today that they
Oh,
reached
nice.
back out to me.
Okay,
Um,
awesome.
So we are going to say, where is that question? Business analysis can be performed from a diverse array of perspectives. So these are the ones that are provided. Waterfall is not in that list. Very good. So let's look at the next one. Next question, number 2. In business analysis, planning and monitoring is one of the stages of business analysis according to the BABOK. The business analyst chooses an approach that provides adequate analysis for the change. This application describes which core concept of the BACCM. Somebody yell out what you think the answer is.
The need, let me see. Business possible business.
It will tell us what the correct answer is, but let's try to
Okay.
pick it. So
Oh,
I
okay,
heard
I'll stick
need.
need. I'll try need.
I
Okay,
would say need, yeah.
okay. Need is defined as a problem or opportunity to be addressed. The question describes what need is to be addressed by BAs in the business analysis, planning, and monitoring knowledge area. And here's the table. So let's look at it. So here is our table that is talking about the core concept model in business analysis, planning, and monitoring. So these are the things that you need to do in the planning and monitoring. You need to identify the active transformation in response to the needs. So you've already identified what your need is. Let me give you an analogy. Whenever you're looking at change, you always have to look at, I have this picture in my mind because somebody drew it for me a long time ago, 2 islands in the ocean, and you want to get from the first island to the second island. And what steps you have to take to get from the first island to the second island is your amount of change. It describes the change that you have to get to make it to the second island. So you've got to build your bridge or your boat or whatever, and that's the transformation. You need to understand the problem and opportunity to be addressed. You've got the solution. You've got to identify your stakeholders. You've got to identify what the value is for making that change. And then you got to talk about the context. I'd like for y'all to just quickly read through these because each of these are important and you need to understand them as we get deeper into the book. Do me a favor and raise your hands whenever you have it read.
Sorry, my husband's talking in the background, so we're supposed to read the whole section. I just want to make sure I'm clear what I'm supposed to be doing.
If you have time, if you want to come back and read it later, you can.
Okay.
Okay, let's move to the next one. In the requirements lifecycle management knowledge area, which is the core concepts that maintains requirements for reuse to extend value beyond the current initiative. Now, I talked about reuse last week. It's the things that you can use again in future projects. So requirements for reuse. Which of the core concepts maintains the requirements for reuse?
I would say D, traceability.
Yep. D.
Yes.
Traceability is not one of the core concepts. Unfortunately, traceability is an important
Oh,
thing.
that's right. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Okay.
It is. This is why you got to really study. So
Yeah.
I mean, don't beat yourself up on this.
This is a perfect example of how in our work environments project and experience, yeah, traceability probably would be the correct answer, but for BABOK, it's got to be value. So like she said, take into consideration when you're studying and doing these example questions, you want to answer this because the exam is looking for the BABOK answer.
They
And
want
you
the
have a lot of
BABOK answer.
questions where out of the 4, 2 of them, just like these two, seem very correct, but it's
Mhm.
looking for that BABOK answer.
Right.
I want to jump in and point out that in all the presentations I've given, I do not necessarily use exactly the verbiage and the formally correct answers the BABOK would provide. I speak much more from a practitioner's standpoint. So that goes to what you were just talking about.
It's true. It's true. So if you're talking about real life work, you're going to use different terms and different phrases than you might if you're talking about the BABOK. But to pass the test for the BABOK, you got to know the BABOK front and back. So I used this analogy last week. A few of you are new, so I'm going to say it one more time. If you are trying to identify counterfeit currency, $100 bills, you will study a $100 bill. You will know every swirl, curl, shading, everything of a $100 bill. That way, if you see something that's not a $100 bill, if it's a counterfeit, you're going to recognize it as that's not right. And that's what we want you to get to whenever you are studying the BABOK, because you're going to get to the place where it's like, oh no, that doesn't fit. And it almost makes you feel like, well, that's ludicrous. It's not what the BABOK said, because you're going to know the phrasing of the BABOK so well that it's going to be easy for you, but you've got to get there. So let's talk about this one. The requirements lifecycle knowledge area includes these tasks, and it's going to go deeper into what the tasks are, but trace requirements. You're going to talk about the relationship between requirements, their implementation, the impact analysis. You're going to talk about maintaining requirements to keep them current through and accurate through the life cycle, and then reusing if possible. Prioritizing the requirements, talking about what value each of them have. you're going to find out that sometimes people will have a requirement, then you take it to the business users or to the developers that have to implement it, and they both say that has no value. But unless you ask the question, that requirement will get worked and your company will pay for that requirement to get worked. And then it has to be tested and then it has to be maintained. Assess the requirements changes. You're going to have the evaluate the new and changing stakeholder requirements as you go through the project, and then the approval of requirements, so that you go back to the stakeholders and go back to everyone as you go through the project to be sure that you still have the right requirements. They don't have a new other project that is going to impact it. They haven't got a new regulation. They don't have a change of priorities from the upper executives, whatever. You want to be sure that those things are taken into consideration as you go through your project, especially if your project is a waterfall level style project instead of agile. With agile, it's a lot easier to make those little changes, but with waterfall, you have to look at the big changes. Okay, let's go to the next one.
But okay, is
Yes,
everyone
ma'am.
clear on why value was the answer instead of traceability?
I
Talk
actually
about it,
had in
Tiffany.
mind value. So from the beginning, I was thinking about value.
Well, I
in my
know,
case.
so from the perspective of, as we were talking about, traceability isn't a core concept, but it came to mind. So I know why that's would be stricken out. But why would value be that the most correct answer again?
We have to assess the value. See, these are your I tell you what, Bob, talk to us about this.
Yeah, because I'm like, assess the values on prioritize, and this is talking about maintaining requirements. So
Yeah, I can
If you
see.
scroll down,
Yeah.
if you scroll down, there you go, that table there, see value,
there.
and then
You're right.
Oh, okay, got you. Okay.
Core concepts, I'm sorry, I didn't go to the right area. Core concepts, we've got value right here. So it's asking for core concepts, maintains the requirements for reuse, maintains the requirements for reuse.
Gotcha.
Very good.
Value drives what you want to remember and what you want to give your customers. That's what ultimately drives the whole process. Everything else is a methodology.
Very good. Okay, next question. Sarah's just completed a required task as prescribed by the business analysis plan. Although the project is completed, how can Sarah continue to deliver value to the enterprise? Let's talk through these. A readiness assessment is not done at the end of the project. A readiness assessment is done near the beginning of the project and then again in the middle. So I don't think it would be D.
Yeah. It's definitely not A.
It's definitely not A, because Sarah does have more work to do.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
Looks
B
like
or C.
I'm going for C.
C.
I would
Yeah, B
go
is
with
in the
C.
middle.
I would
Okay.
say C.
Let's try it. All right, very
Yeah.
good.
Because
So
the
let's
test
look
plans are created by the developers. They're not done really by the BA, right?
Test plans can be done by anybody. And it depends on your
Okay.
organization that will help you identify who is supposed to do the test plan. Let me get to the right place here.
But test plans are usually done during the actual project, but they're saying here that she's completed all of her tasks already and the project is already completed.
Okay, because the plan is completed, so the test plan should have been completed. Is that what you're saying?
I've seen the test plan completed at the beginning of the project, the middle of the project, or the end of the project. And that's usually
Okay.
end of the project by either uneducated or lazy testers. But seriously, but the tests themselves, I personally like to create at least the basic tests as I create the requirements, because it allows me to confirm with the users, if we test it this way, will this tell us that it's achieving this requirement? You know, how can we prove that we've met this requirement, and put that right there with the requirement? That way the testers don't have to try to go deep into it or go back and ask the clients what to do. But the analysis and support of the enterprise evolution and continuous improvement, that's for sure there, because you know that the organization is going to continue to change, and this thing might need to be aware of a new implementation in 6 months, or we're moving to a different platform, or we're bringing on a new type of technology. So you have to have that kind of support in place, or whenever it happens, maybe this project's going to get left out. So you have to.
I think on the BABOK, you went down too far. I think you're like in chapter 5.
You know, I know I did a search
there's
for
a
1.1.2.
5.1.2. So
I know. I know. I did a search for 1.2 and it just jumped to that one. Oh, here we are. So here's where the answer is going to be for this question. Let's see.
That's page 2 for me.
Yeah, it's page 2.
I have a few slides we can visit at the end of this that I think will put a lot of this in context for you.
Okay.
Those of you who've seen my presentations are sick of looking at them, I'm sure, because I share the same ones every time because they're the core of the practice. But I think, and I'll keep it brief, they will be very helpful.
I would be glad to see them, Bob, and I bet you most of the other people here would be as well. How much time do you think you would like to have to share those?
Like 3 minutes.
I'll give you 3.5. I feel magnanimous. Okay, we'll do that at the end. Okay, Leslie, you want to read this?
Sure. I'm on my phone, so I forgot.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
No, I can see it.
Okay, go
It's
ahead.
okay. I can zoom in. Harutu, a renowned business analyst expert, was explaining the relationship between the following is the explanation Harutu offered. A project is a type of organization. B, organizations often have a clear, defined boundary and operate on a continuous basis, as opposed to an initiative or project team, which may be disbanded once its objectives are achieved. C, organizations don't have a clearly defined boundary, which is very similar to an initiative or project team, which may be disbanded once its objectives are achieved. And D, the terms organization enterprise can be used interchangeably. Initiatives.
I don't know, it's B, but it's too
would not
obvious.
think it would be A.
Are there any that you can
D?
that you can eliminate
Yeah, I was
right
thinking
off?
maybe D. I would definitely say A would be eliminated. A project is a type of organization.
But they ask relationship between organizations and initiatives.
Organizations and initiatives.
So, yeah, so I mean, B hit my eyes, but I don't know if it's.
B and C are the only ones that have the word initiative in it.
And organizations, they have goals.
Yeah, that's what
they
I
have
was thinking
boundaries.
between B and C. I would eliminate A. Yeah, I have clearly defined boundaries on continuous basis as opposed. I would, or there's don't. I would think B.
Let's try it. And we are correct.
Yeah.
Let's go to 2.2. Design enterprise. Organization. Autonomous group of
clearly-
people. I'm sorry?
No, I just was seeing organizations often have a clearly defined boundary and operate on a continuous basis, which is in this
Yep.
question.
It will either quote the BABOK here, or it's going to quote the BABOK here. But if you know the BABOK well enough, you're going to go, oh, I know what part goes with that. Okay, let's jump to the next one. Number 6, which of the following best describes an element? There are mandatory guidelines regarding how to utilize techniques aligned with best practice. There are mandatory guidelines regarding how to perform a task or utilize a technique aligned with best practice. There are mandatory guidelines regarding how to perform a task aligned with best practice. Or there are key concepts that are needed to understand how to perform a task or utilize a technique.
D.
I'm going with D.
Agreed.
You guys rock.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now I'm
Key
curious
concepts.
why. So that y'all, a lot of y'all were like very strong, like it's got to be D. So what made it so like D for you?
I don't
I
think.
was reading.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
element. It looks like some kind of inputs, basically.
Yeah, that's what.
So it definitely not guidelines. So I just used language to understand and common sense, I guess.
Not to mention elements tend to be, I remember the definition of this more or less vaguely, but the elements were more just portions of a certain a certain technique or something. It's more like this is supposed to be brain fogging. Okay, never mind. Forget me.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's see. Elements.
No, I kind of follow your thought. They're a subset of something.
Yeah.
Um,
They're not guidelines.
they're not guidelines, and so I think
element
because
is
all
a-
three. of the-
It's a chess piece.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Let's see. Who would like to read this one?
I'll read it.
All
All
right,
right.
Tiffany, go.
I can't really see the, okay, that's the edge of your screen. A distinguished business analyst stated the following to a project sponsor. My projects are always successful because I apply all BABOK 3.0 based perspectives when I plan and execute work on my project. Why is this an invalid statement?
Do you want to read the question?
You want to read the question? Okay, so is it A, this is invalid because perspectives are only useful when planning BA tasks, not executing them. B, this is invalid because applying all perspectives doesn't ensure project success. C, this is actually a valid statement. The BA is distributing the ability to plan and execute BA tasks through several lenses. D, this is invalid because the perspectives outlined in the BABOK do not represent all the context of business analysis or the complete set of business analysis disciplines.
D.
Yeah, I would say D because it says the BABOK doesn't already says that. Doesn't
Yep,
represent
it says that. Ta-da!
Yay.
This is a
Yay.
quote directly from the book. It does not represent all the context. In other words, the BABOK has, 80–85% of everything you're going to need. And there are other things outside of the BABOK.
Tricky given that B was there too. It's
Mhm.
close,
That's
but
true.
One of the things I always say is that the BABOK is written in a very diffuse, very general way because there are a million things you can do. It gives you a set of tools to throw at it, but it can never be complete. So you're never going to get a cookie cutter series of steps you'll take that'll guarantee success. You'll never get a book to cover every case. So what it tries to do is just give you a general and organized approach to it. And you have to take it in that loose format and understand the problem it's actually trying to address.
I concur completely. Good job, Bob. Okay, the next one, within the context of requirements life cycle management, which of the following statements is true about the change core concept? Business analysis manages how proposed changes to requirements and designs are evaluated during an initiative. Business analysis work closely with key stakeholders to maintain understanding, agreement, and approval of requirements and designs. Business analysts trace requirements and designs to solution components to ensure that the solution satisfies the need. And business analysts trace, prioritize, and maintain requirements to ensure that the need is met.
I vote for B.
Yeah, I would opt for B too.
Okay. This one is out of the book. Let's find it. Well, it's not directly. Let's try it this way. 2.1.1. Chapter 2. Well, maybe it's just not that important. Nope. Okay. So this explains the change core concept of the knowledge area of requirements lifecycle management in table 5.0.1 and table 2.1.1. This one is a stakeholder concept. This is our job. Don't get me wrong. This is extremely important to keep everybody on the same page as things go through and are developed and changes are made. But that's not answering the question about the change core concept. Any questions about this one? Okay. Moving forward. Rafa is a BA facilitating a workshop to understand the current order fulfillment process. Sandra is a current process owner and is the key contributor to the workshop. What type of stakeholder is Sandra? An end user, a domain subject matter expert, an implementation subject matter expert, or a customer?
B.
Yeah.
You are correct. Domain subject matter expert, a lot of times we just call them SMEs in the real world, but she is the expert that is not only the process owner, but she's also the key contributor. If they said she's one of the key contributors or one of the process owners or one of the SMEs, it might be a little bit different, but because she is the main person and that is her whole world and she's the owner, she's the domain subject matter expert.
All right, and one thing I want to point out, if you could get to the stakeholders section in chapter 2. Sid, remember this was something we talked about in our study group, the difference between end user and customer. So for a customer, just for a key thing to remember, anytime you have a question like this and it mentions something about licensing or a contract, that's typically what they have under the customer stakeholder. Your end user, sometimes, for us, we interchange end user and customer. So when you're faced with a question that talks about an end user that directly, interacts with the solution, whereas the customer has a contractual or moral right to the enterprise or the solution. Those are some key words to make sure you consider.
Absolutely. Different kinds of stakeholders have different impacts on your project, and they have different levels of communication that you owe to them, as well as different ways that you're going to interact with them. One of the things that you're going to use as a BA is going to be it's called a stakeholder diagram. And you identify who is involved, what their role in the project is, what their current problems are with the project, I'm sorry, the process, what their things that are important to them, what they want to be involved in decision-making, what they need to be informed about. That document is your communication guide, and it allows you to be sure you get the right people in the room whenever you need to make a specific decision.
Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, with regards to domain versus implementation, I get them confused all the time. I know vaguely what an implementation SME is, but I always feel like domain could just as easily cover that. How would you best typify the difference between the two? Hopefully I wasn't on mute.
No, we heard you.
We heard you.
I think we were deep thought trying to answer your question, Bob.
Yeah, Bob.
That's
All right,
cruel.
So the owning SME is the person who does the business function, right? So if you're doing disability insurance underwriting in one subphase of that within a company, you know all the details of how that's done. Now, the implementer, once you've come up with the solution, let's say you write software to automate that process, the people who create and implement and test the software, they're the implementation SMEs. And your job as a BA is to be the liaison between the process owner and the solution provider. So you're the bridge between the two kinds of SMEs. You help them understand each other.
Okay, so in a nutshell, domain is kind of what's already in existence for the system, and the implementation is what's the new processes and how that actually functions.
Yeah, roughly speaking, there's a special case that I always talk about, and that is if you're building a process from scratch, like a solution doesn't exist already, or let's say the process already exists and you're going to automate it or change it. The implementation might be one thing, but if you're going to create something from scratch, that's a little bit different because you figure out what you need together.
Okay, so maybe this will help as well, and along the lines of what Bob is saying. So if we look here on the left-hand side of the description of the domain and the implementation. So in my mind, from what Bob's examples are saying, say you have a project, you know, you're supposed to be, let's say, implementing a new service desk for the company. Then we have the person that's over the service desk and the CIO. They're your domain subject matter experts, along like the people who are going to be using the service desk software. But then you have to have someone that's going to handle the infrastructure, the architecture, the actual programming of tying in the different things within the software to make it work. Those particular people, because they have specialized knowledge, would be your implementation subject matter experts. So you can have like a couple of domain subject experts, but depending on how massive, you know, what involved with the coding or aspects, architecture, anything like that, then you can also have a ton of implementation because they have specialized knowledge for a certain portion of that particular solution.
Whenever you talk about implementation, you're talking about someone who's going to have a limited impact on the project. They're going to come in, they're going to do their thing, and they're going to leave. They might have, you know, they might come in to provide support at some later date, but the subject matter expert is the guy that's going to stay there. And they may have been there before the project started.
Okay, so the key idea is specialized knowledge for a certain part as opposed to, you know, in general.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yulia?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could we come back to the question about change as core concept? I think it's previous question.
Previous question?
Yeah, okay, change core. I still don't feel that because change is about BA explain change to stakeholders that value the change, why we are doing it. So one of the tasks would be persuade people that yes, we need it and get everybody on board. And A seems to me does not answer the question.
Right, but you got to remember in the context of the requirements life cycle management, because you use the core concepts in the different parts of the
I
knowledge
missed that
areas.
part.
You got to
This
think
part
about
right
it
here.
as far as,
Okay, I missed that part. Okay.
so,
thank
but there's
Yeah.
a chart. There's a
It's-
chart on,
I've got it right here.
you.
You got 2.1.1, it's the core concepts. And you got your change.
Yeah. I got blind with the word requirements. That's why
It's okay.
kick me
It's
off.
okay.
Thank you.
We will all do that. And it takes, that's one reason it's good to work together to go through these, because it's like, oh, I didn't see that piece, or, you know, I didn't know that's what it meant. And sometimes it's just, we're having a Monday on a Tuesday. That's okay.
right, but also remember, because this is one of those tricky ones, because the question asked about the requirements lifecycle management, that's why it also talked about table 5.0.1, which we haven't gotten to yet. So yes,
Yeah.
it does mention change here, but for this question, I guarantee you the change is a chart that it kind of more explains and ties into the answer that they were looking for.
Okay. Let's go to
you.
number 10. Not answered. Which is not a true statement regarding the role of a business analyst. Business analyst plays a role in aligning the delivered solution with stakeholder needs. The business analyst selects the projects that best meet the organization's strategic initiatives after performing analysis activities. The business analyst discovers, synthesizes, and analyzes information from a variety of sources within the organization, or the business analyst plays a role in aligning the design solution with stakeholder needs.
I want to say B.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a
It-
close one between B and C though.
Hold
Yeah, but the
on.
business analyst does like bringing stuff together, making the ultimate decision about where the direction of what project, what to do. I would think that would either be a project manager or a sponsor or somebody else.
Yeah, I would say that's a program manager, but for me, C is so vague. It's kind of dangerous too, but I'm not sure either way.
okay. Now remember, we want a statement that's not a true statement. So we
It
think
looks
this
like
one's
B.
probably a program manager.
Yeah. Or something
Okay,
like it.
let's see. We are correct. The executive team generally selects the projects the organization will work on to meet the strategic objectives. The BA may provide input and make recommendations to the selection, but they do not make the selection. I tell you, you have a mature company whenever you have the people that are doing the analysis and with boots on the ground are able to provide input to this. Okay, the 6th core concept in the BACCM. I've got it, part of them right here. Oops.
That's cheating.
I'll move it. Okay,
I
now
think
do
it's
it.
D. D, change, need, solution, stakeholder, value, and context.
Sounds about right.
We are
Yeah,
correct.
necessity is not there at first place, so
Yep.
AB is out right away.
And
Yeah,
concept doesn't exist. Yeah.
yeah, concept
Okay.
is not
Very
part of
good.
that model.
But you see how it could be like if you're rushing through or you're not really taking the time, you could probably have easily been sitting there like, is it C or is it D? Could it be C? So yeah, but good point. Definitely remember that concept is not a core concept.
Yep. Core concept does not include concept. We'll remember that one from now on. Okay, which is true about knowledge areas? They provide methodology for completing business analysis work. They comprise the business analysis project lifecycle. They represent or correlate to project phases, or they represent areas of specific business analysis expertise that encompass several tasks.
Ooh, D. I don't know why. I remember about that knowledge area is a task.
I kind of
vote
like
for D.
I kind of go for B or C again myself. Because I think
Okay.
they correlate to a part of the life cycle. I'm just not sure which one of those fits better.
I wanted, and maybe I'm, it's my project management background. I want to say B, but
Okay.
that might not be right.
Why B versus C?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't think D or A.
I strayed away completely. Okay, let's see.
Well, we
It's
don't know
okay.
yet.
We
Let's
don't know.
find out. Let's do it together. The
Oh,
answer
you're
is
right.
D.
We're all wrong.
Let's look this up. Okay, 1.4.2. Oh, no, that's not gonna work. Let's go back up. Here it is, knowledge areas. Knowledge areas represent areas of specific business analysis expertise that encompass several tasks. Whenever they originally wrote BABOK 1.6, I think they had somebody that had been in chemistry or biology, maybe, and they created these categories. And so they started with key concepts, knowledge areas, and then within each of the knowledge areas, they kind of grouped the different tasks. And you're going to learn about each task as we move our way through the book, but they just use the word knowledge area to kind of have a bucket to drop each of these groups of tasks into.
I will say this is the kind of question, having taken a ton of these tests, that is extremely annoying because for me, most of those answers have a germ of truth to them.
Yes.
And you have to accept that sometimes you're just going to get questions wrong for that reason. And therefore, you have to be right enough to pass the test, and don't lose sleep over the occasional annoying thing like this.
It's true. There's going to be 3 answers that are probably going to be close, but only one of them is going to be the most right answer every single time. If you can eliminate the one that you know it's not, at least it gives you better odds.
It's funny you guys say that, Thea and Robert, because I haven't taken this, but I've taken a ton of Microsoft tests, and they are the exact same way. They'll give you
They
4 answers. 3 are kind of okay, right? And then 1 is a definite, and then you got to pick it apart.
Yes, you have to pick it apart. You always have to work on the odds and the statistics and just do the best you can. And if you have to take it a second time, you have to take it a second time, but we're going to try to make it where you don't.
Thea is 7:50, so if you want to take time to do both sets of slides. I know Bob had slides and you had some slides you wanted to go through too.
Okay, well, let's do these last 2 questions and we'll do Bob's slides, because my slides are the official slides from the IIBA, and I came to the conclusion that they were not teaching us what we needed to learn to be able to pass the test. This is. So if anyone disagrees with my method here, let me know and we can have a discussion. But I just felt like the slides were not telling y'all what you needed to learn to be able to pass the test. Susan is a business analyst developing a screen mockup for key stakeholders showing fields from a data model. Which of the following is true? Susan is eliciting requirements and using the data model fields to understand user needs. Susan is assisting the architect and developer to complete their deliverables. Susan is defining the design of some aspect of the solution based on eliciting requirements. Or Susan is working both as a business analyst and a design architect.
It's
go for
gonna
C.
be A or C.
Yeah, I was thinking A or C since I'm listening across.
Yeah,
This is
I-
the-
I'd go C because you're taking the requirements and doing
yeah.
a direct expression of that to solve a solution.
Yeah, she would have to have something to work from to create the model, right?
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Screen mockups are considered design, and one example in the BABOK design focuses on the solution. Susan is defining the design based upon elicited requirements, which the data model fields imply. So I'm going to talk about screen mockups real quick. I've heard them called wireframes. I've heard them called mock screens. I've heard them called a lot of different things. But what I've found is if you can get the client all in the same room, looking at a picture, you can get a much better concept of what is needed and what they need to have on the screen. And even you can identify priorities of, if we can't get it all on the screen, what are the things we need most? You know, which of the five of the 10 things are mandatory, or do we need first, or whatever? But having a picture clarifies so much.
Yes,
The
it
other
does.
thing is that you should have done the analysis and the elicitation and so on to know everything that should be on that screen before you build it. The screen should pretty much define themselves, and what you're doing in this case is just getting the feedback from the customer. And if you find you miss something, then you have more cyclic things to go over, and I'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I was thinking. Because if it's A, you're really guessing about what they need. You don't have the actual information. Whereas C, you have the information and you're building it out just to verify that it's correct.
If at this point you have already identified what the customer journey is, for instance, this screen is to allow them to assign a facility to a position. And so what is the thing they're trying to do? What have they already done? What will they need to do? And it will allow them to be sure that this screen is not only needed, but it has the right elements on it. But you have to look at it in the whole customer journey whenever you're defining screens. Okay, number 14, what is the key difference between the enterprise and organization according to the BABOK? An organization can contain one or more enterprises. An enterprise can contain one or more organizations. An enterprise is a group of people working towards a common goal. The terms are synonymous and can be used interchangeably.
I think D.
Pretty sure enterprise is bigger than organization. But
Yeah. I was thinking C. I have to go back and look.
I
saw
kind
it.
of like B or C again. Yeah, this is the trend.
Let's find out. The correct answer is that enterprise can contain one or more organizations.
Okay.
So let's go back up to the top.
This is again something that's kind of annoying, because as a practical matter, who cares? But the test has to test something.
Oh, I see what it says.
Can somebody give me a page number?
15.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's 15 in the book. I don't know if that's.
It's the same.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, 15 on the PDF or 15 on the actual? Because
Oh,
you're on
I
page
have the
5.
actual hard
Sorry, I was
copy.
on page 5. I was trying to
Okay.
get 15. I apologize.
That's okay. I was like, wait a minute, the
That
PDF
doesn't
is
look
on.
the same.
Yeah,
All right,
right
here's
there.
enterprise. Enterprise
It's
is
in-
a system of one or more organizations and the solutions they use to pursue a shared set of common goals. These solutions, referred to as organizational capabilities, can be processes, tools, or information. For the purpose of business analysis, enterprise boundaries can be defined relative to the change and need not be constrained by the boundaries of a legal entity, organization, or organizational unit. An enterprise may include any number of business, government, or any other type of organization. Okay, we have one more left and then we're going to go to Bob. Regulators are responsible for the definition and enforcement of standards. Which of the following lists include ways standards can be imposed on the solution by regulators? Corporate governance, legislation, organizational centers of competency, sponsor audit standards, corporate governance, sponsor legislation, audit standards, sponsor legislation, organizational centers of competency.
I want to say A. I don't think.
Me too. A.
Yeah, I don't think any sponsor has anything to do with that. Sponsors
Yeah.
person, at least in my mind.
I
could
agree.
I could construe it, but yeah, A seems the most clear cut.
Yeah, sponsors who gives money for the project.
Ah, we are
Yeah.
good. Regulators are responsible for the definition and enforcement of standards which can be imposed on the solution through corporate governance standards, legislation, or standards defined by organizational centers of competency. Okay, Bob, let's turn it over to you so you can show us those slides that everybody needs.
Okay. Somebody else is sharing.
I am sharing my screen. I'm stopping now. You got it.
And that. Okay, can you see?
Not yet.
Not your screen.
Yeah, not yet.
It's coming.
There you go.
Yeah, it's coming.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, structure of the BABOK.
Hang on. Oh, good Lord.
While Bob is setting up, can I give a suggestion about our study group? I think today, when we were looking at the real questions, it's super, super helpful. Maybe we can read a chapter. Let's say for next session, we read chapter 2, and then we again do questions. And for the next session, we read maybe half of chapter 3, and so on and so on.
Unfortunately, the question choices are in groups. So let's look at Bob's slides, and then I'll show you the groups, and then we can talk about it. Thank
All
you.
right.
Good idea.
Do you see the structure of the BABOK screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so chapters 1, 2, 9, and 11, the way I understand it, are kind of what the lower level certs do, like the ECBA. I can't remember all the acronyms, and 3, 8, and 10 are like what the CBAP concentrates on. And if you're going to do an entire project that's from a BA and a project management standpoint, you more or less go through all these phases. We can pare it down to just 6 plus data. And after that, we can map those 6 or even everything to the 6 knowledge areas that happen here. So across the top, you have the 6 phases in the middle columns, and all the project phases you might do, they map sort of from top left flowing down to bottom right, and they're more or less in order. So again, the approach the BABOK gives you tells a story, gives you a direction, but it doesn't give you a cookie cutter approach. And the way I show this is the 6 main things you do are iterative. So you do the problem statement or the business analysis, planning and monitoring at the beginning, and you kind of work together with everyone till you're all in agreement. Then you figure out what's going on. That's the conceptual model. Then you figure out what you need for the solution. That's the requirements. Then you figure out how you're going to solve the problem. That's the design. Then you actually solve the problem. That's the implementation. and then you test it. That is the test and acceptance phase. Now, all those are iterative. Every time you do one, first of all, you want to be aware going in, like we spoke about with finding testing at the beginning. You want to know that all these things are going to be happening and have an idea how you're going to approach all of them to start so they're all ready. And when you find something you need to do in an earlier phase as a result of something you see in the current or later phase, you can go back. So you iterate within each phase and go back and forth between phases as needed. And that happens no matter what management context you have, waterfall, scrum, hybrid, whatever. There are more, won't belabor the point. The other thing is requirements traceability. All the elements should map to each other. There might be thousands of these. This is only notional, but you identify what's going on in each phase, all the items you have to address. They should map from an item in a previous phase and to an item in a subsequent phase, and everything should be tested and accepted. You can inject non-functional requirements in that are based on your design. There is a lot to be said. I don't want to belabor the point, but I hope that helps you put it in context.
Bob, can you give us an example of a requirement that would flow through each of these steps and how it would change in each of these steps?
Well, that's something I've thought about, putting together a presentation that would walk through a sample project. So
Okay.
if you have a requirement that is a particular piece of data you need to modify, that comes out of the conceptual model because it is something you discover that is both a piece of data people need and need to change, and that is identified flowing out of the business need, which is the intended use or problem statement. The design is then the way you show the data and facilitate or enable the manipulation and display of it. The implementation is actually coding that up and making it happen, and then test is all the different ways you can make sure they did that. There are tons of verification and validation steps you can discuss. And then once all those pass, the customer can sign off. There's your acceptance.
Very good. Okay, thank you so much, Bob. Okay, let me share the screen again. Let me borrow it back from you.
It is 8:06.
Okay, let's just talk about what we're going to do next week so everybody can be prepared. Thank you for the timekeeper.
No problem.
Okay. The exam, let's go to. So here's how Watermark structures their exams. We can do chapters 1 and 2, or chapter 9 or chapter 10, or then we can choose a knowledge area. So most of us have already read chapter 1 pretty well, but it sounds like not everybody's read chapter 2. Do we want to next week do another round of questions for chapters 1 and 2 to get those down solid before we move on? Or do we want to go into the next, the requirements analysis and design, which is one of the next chapters?
1 and 2.
I like 1 and 2. I vote for 1 and 2. I think that we probably need to get that foundation. Otherwise, we'll be kind of skipping around in the book or the other way.
I agree. 1 and 2 is really the foundation basis for everything else. And it kind of gives you the good introduction. Honestly, it introduces you to the vocabulary more than anything else. If you have the opportunity, please read through the vocabulary, the glossary in the back. Whenever I wrote my part of this, I wrote the underlying competencies, I wrote the techniques, and I wrote the glossary. So those are the ones I know pretty well. In fact, whenever I read it, it's like, I can see my fingerprints on that. But the glossary is really important because they do use some words in a way that you don't always use it that way in the real world, but that's the way the BABOK required it. And that's the way they were using it. So I had to put it in the glossary. So read chapters 1 and 2 and read the glossary. And next week, we're going to get a better score than we did. Let's see, view exam history. Resume exam. Okay, we checked that answer. We are done. View results. So today we got an 80%. We did not do badly.
That's
We can
passing.
do better.
Yeah.
Because in the stress of the test, you're not going to do quite as well as you do in a practice test. So we want to do a little bit better for a real test on our own.
We also won't have a panel available to us whenever we take the exam.
Yeah. And it's nice to be able to talk through things if you're an extrovert. Okay, guys, we will see you here next Tuesday. Same time. We'll try not to go over, but we'll do chapters 1 and 2 and the glossary, and we'll make a better score than we did this time. Deal?
Right.
Deal.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you all
Okay.
for your participation. This really
Thank
helps
you.
everyone. Good
If
job.
anybody
you.
needs anything, if anybody's looking for a job or whatever, reach out to me through LinkedIn and I'll do my best to help you.
I
Cool.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good day.
All right,
All right,
take
you too.
care.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.